Growing up, I lived in a decent-sized middle-class apartment complex. This took place 1988-1990. I was about 4 or 5 when it happened. Since there was only one driveway in and out of the complex, my mother pretty much let me roam around by myself from a very young age. My court or block of APTs was the first one you passed entering the complex, and my apartment was 100 feet from it. I wasn't supposed to leave the court unless my mom knew whose place I was going to. I was a very curious and precocious child and very social. My mom called me the mayor because I knew who a good number of people in the complex were. I had overall had a few run-ins with creeps, weirdos, and a definite pedo or two over the years living there, but nothing that ever escalated into any sort of worrisome incident. My parents were both pretty tough growing up and educated me early on street smarts and self-defense. And that it's okay to talk to strangers in certain situations because not everyone is bad, and how to tell when someone might be a danger to me. We had at one point a particularly ugly, creepy ice cream man. He had a Billy Ray Cyrus type spiky mullet, he always wore tank tops and had really bad acne, he also had really weird teeth and a piggish nose. At the time I considered him in his 40s, but looking back on it, he was probably in his late teens, early 20s. He loved talking to the other kids about wrestling. I went to his truck once, along with friends, when he was parked outside the pool. I didn't have enough money for something, so I said, "Oh, never mind," but he gave it to me anyway for whatever money I did have. But I didn't like the way he too friendly smiled at me. So, if I heard the ice cream man, I'd peek out the window to see which ice cream guy was pulling into the complex, and if it wasn't him, I'd get ice cream. I don't know how much time had passed between my first encounter with him and the last, but in between there were a few occasions where I was coming home or going to a different court for whatever reason, and if I happened to be walking down the main drive, he'd pull up next to me on the sidewalk and I'd just pretend he wasn't there and cut through a court and hide. He'd holler things like, "Why are you so scared of me? I'm nice. You make me feel bad." One day my mom said I couldn't leave the court for whatever reason. My friend lived in the corner apartment of the court after mine. So I sat on my court's corner nearest hers, she sat on her corner. We were talking and tossing toys to each other across the parking lot. I heard the ice cream man. Even though I was at the other end of my block, he saw me when he pulled in. He started driving towards me and I just ran and hid in my court till he moved further into the complex. I waited what felt like enough time and I didn't hear music anymore. I walked back to the corner and my friend had gone inside already. I pick up whatever toy I had left behind, and as I turned to start walking home, I notice he's sitting in the parking lot of the court across the main drive in his truck with the music off. I drop what I was holding, and go to pick it back up. He's already directly across the street from me, stopped. "Hi. What's your name? Can we be friends? I feel bad that I scared you, I'm a really nice guy." He had on a tie-dye tank top, and his hair was really greasy and his acne was very flared up. I remember just being so repulsed by him. My legs locked up because I was so scared, and mentally I was trying to decide if I'd have a better chance escaping through the woods or chance it down the main drive. I can't have friends. My mom said, "So well, let me give you a free ice cream." I feel bad. My mom says I can't have ice cream. "Okay, you can have candy or soda or a snap bracelet. Sorry, I can't cross the street." "That's okay. I'll come to you. You can ride in the truck and play the music if you want." I realized this back and forth was going to be a losing battle for me, so I decided the best thing to do was play along. "Okay. If you turn the truck around, I don't have to cross the street so my mom won't get mad." He'd have to leave, and immediately re-enter the complex to do that, but it would buy me 20 to 30 seconds. He got way too excited that I seemed willing and started to drive. I took off running. I got home and my mom was on the phone with my dad, who was out of state for the day. I told her what happened and she made me tell my dad, and they both told me how proud of me they were and how I had made really grown-up decisions. After that, unless I was out of town, I avoided ice cream men at all costs. I still think about that to this day, and always tell that story to kids I babysit. I just hope I was the only kid he tried to bait, and that no one else had an experience with him which was worse. On October of 2016, a longtime family friend began harassing my family. So, I've known this guy since I was around 5. He worked at my dad's friend's car dealership as the person who basically maintainces the exteriors, washes the cars, shines them, etc. My parents became fond of him because he looked very sweet, and they rather felt pity for him as he had horrible hygiene habits. They'd often buy him food, gift him clothes, and things of that sort. Around 2015 this man gets a job right across the street from my mom's job. He saw my mom one morning and they just waved at each other. This man starts calling my mom frequently. Now, my mom is extremely nice, too nice, so instead of just not picking up, she would talk to him. This guy becomes obsessed with my mom to the point she tells him to stop contacting her, around May of 2016. All is well, guy stops contacting mom. Months later he began to watch my mom. He would park his car in front of my mom's job and watch her. She noticed him but she never saw it as a huge threat, so she never said anything. That's where things escalate. My mom was walking out of work with a coworker one day, normal coworker friendship. My mom catches a ride with her coworker to a mandatory work event, so she wouldn't have to drive home too late as these events end late at night. Meanwhile, the guy is watching them walk to his car. He suddenly thinks that my mom is having an affair with this guy and decides to follow them. They arrive at the place and my mom stays in the car while her coworker goes inside to check if it's the right location. The stalker walks up to the car, opens the door, slaps my mom, grabs a knife from his car, and slashes the coworker's tires. My mom is in complete shock, and immediately calls her coworker to come outside. The coworker decides to not press any charges against him, even though he easily could, as there were cameras outside the location. Now, my mom mentions none of this to my dad because my dad is really explosive, to the point that he will get in trouble over this guy. So, everything is okay for a couple of days, until this guy starts calling my mom non-stop and leaving her threatening voicemails. The voicemails said things along the lines of, if you don't meet me up at a hotel on Wednesday at 1 p.m., I'm going to tell your husband you're cheating on him. This scares my mom because my dad has a past with domestic violence, so she's scared my dad will believe him and beat her. Wednesday comes along and when she gets to work he is outside watching her, whole day watching her. She calls my grandparents, they're not old farts, as my grandpa is an ex-military, ex-judoka, and is no one to play with. They immediately drive to my mom's job, but this guy starts harassing my grandparents, and won't leave my mom's job. 1 p.m. comes around and my mom calls the police. Dude hauls across the street and hides, leaving his car at my mom's job. Police search for him everywhere, and he's nowhere to be found. The phone calls continue and things escalate. This man decides to vandalize my mom's car. He throws tar all over my mom's car while the car is parked outside my house. Car is destroyed and my parents have to pay lots of money to be able to fix it. At this point, my dad knows of the whole ordeal, and is set on killing this guy. We advise him to calm down because my mom is planning on getting a restraining order from him, and she didn't want my dad to ruin her chances or commit a crime. He continues calling and stands outside my mom's job every day. This man starts driving by my house every day, and begins to see me as a target. He leaves my mom a threatening voicemail saying he is going to vandalize my car, so at this point I'm even more terrified. At this point in the story, my mom has had to call the cops on him several times, but the cops say they can't do anything as he hasn't physically attacked her. My mom decides she's going to finally petition for the restraining order, with the police reports and voicemails as proof. They set up a court date, and give my mom a temporary restraining order until the court date, so approximately 2 weeks. This guy does not stop calling my mom, so my mom calls the detective in charge of her case, and the guy hasn't even been served with the restraining order yet, few days before the court date. He was notified with the court date, though, so he tells my mom he has proof that she won't stop calling him. He then starts targeting the rest of us. I wake up one Saturday morning, and my car has letters drawn all over the windows with nail polish. Luckily, we were able to just scrape it off gently, but by now I am a nervous wreck. I start doing bad in my classes, and I hadn't slept for about a month. He then begins to harass my dad with voicemails and phone calls, but luckily my dad didn't buy any of his BS. Finally, the court date arrives. This man shows up with his stepson, and his stepson starts talking shit to my mom, because of course he only knows this man's side of the story. The judge calls them in and does the usual questioning, talks about police reports, etc. The judge asks him if he has anything to say or show. He says yes, I have a phone bill that shows she called me more than 200 times in the past month. The judge says okay, show me. Guess what, he didn't bring it. There's no such thing. Judge nods her head and says okay, I reached the verdict. He was found guilty, and my mom was awarded a restraining order for life. We finally have peace in our family again. So, family stalker, fuck you. Let's not meet again. Edit. Just want to tell people who might be in similar situations to please go to the police ASAP. The danger and the emotional torture is not worth it. Sometimes they won't go away, like we thought this guy would. We took too long to take action. Tensions were high around our apartment complex when I was around age 10. In a month's time we had a man that committed suicide in a unit, a partial fire in a building leading to reconstruction, and a child that had been hit by a car, who later survived. Even at a younger age, I remember distinctly having a strong grasp on the bizarre events that were taking place. It had to be around spring in 1997. My mother was single and raising my little sister, about 5 years old, and I. She managed a different complex and would pick us up from school and drop us off at our apartment while she returned to work for a couple of more hours. I have 3 older siblings, whom all moved out, that at some point had to keep an eye on each other at a young age, so this wasn't really a new premise. There was no money for a sitter, the oldest just had to assume the role, which was me. For the most part, we were really quiet kids in our second and third story unit. We played with our toys, watched a little television, and sometimes played Sega or Nintendo. On this particular afternoon I recall playing with a Dash Rendar figurine from Star Wars while my sister was doing whatever in the same living room. Suddenly, the doorknob started violently shaking. My heart dropped and I remember it being the first time I had felt such terror. I rushed to the phone and paged my mom 911 and then dialed 911 to let the operator know that someone was breaking in. The operator reassured me that help was on the way. The door handle was still being messed with, but I was nervous if the deadbolt and chain would be enough. A couple of loud bangs happened, as if someone were ramming the door with their shoulder, then it all just stopped. The cops arrived shortly before my mom only to find a note from the maintenance man saying something like, "Air filter check." Now, the maintenance man claimed that he announced himself verbally, but I knew it was bullshit. Of course, the cops did nothing and my mom's complaint to the office didn't yield in this man being fired. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be most unnerving part of the story. My mom said the guy would stare her down in the parking lot and just smile at her. The whole situation creeped us out and we wanted to move, but we couldn't afford the expenses. One night a couple of weeks later I was awakened by a loud thud coming from the roof. Being so easily rattled from the previous event, I ran to my mom's room to wake her up. She checked around to make sure everything was in place and reassured me that it was probably a rodent. We went to school the next morning and were dropped off at home in the afternoon as usual. Mom usually did a quick sweep of the place, even before the attempted break-in, but this time, something seemed off. It was just a very uneasy feeling the apartment had when walking in. My sister and I were ordered to stay downstairs by the front door while she investigated upstairs. We waited patiently and felt very unnerved when suddenly our mother's shrieking confirmed our suspicion. She came barreling down the stairs and ushered us out the door. We went to a neighbor's and phoned the police. My mother was barking at them, "Someone is in our apartment." The police responded pretty quickly and I was finally able to understand the situation. The bedroom had a walk-in closet that contained a hatch to the attic that connected the entire building's AC/heat. There were shelves that were pretty high up lining the closet walls. My mother walked in to find a dirty pair of men's tidy-whitey underwear laying in the floor. This was enough to send her running and phoning the police. However, the investigation revealed something more. The attic hatch had been disturbed. Just to add, the police found full handprints on the shelves in the closet. The noises I heard the previous night were more than likely this man hoisting himself back up into the crawl space using the shelves to climb on after visiting us. The man was taken into custody, but I don't recall what the sentencing was. I need to look into it. Coincidentally, my older brother is now a homicide detective for that area. We ended up moving into my grandmother's house shortly after.